Discover the incredible, heartwarming journey of ancient Mesopotamia. Life-changing lessons Expo. Amy's heart raced as she clutched the colorful flyer, the bold letters practically leaping off the page. Ancient Mesopotamia. It shouted, details of vibrant images unraveling in her mind, a world filled with ziggurats, sprawling cities, and stories of resilience. This was not just an exhibit. It felt like a key to unlocking dreams that had been buried beneath the weight of her family's struggles. Hope sparked in her chest like the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. "Jake, look," she exclaimed, rushing into the cramped kitchen where her older brother was seated. The old table creaked under the burden of grocery bags, but excitement filled the air as Amy proudly waved the flyer. "They're bringing an exhibit here. It's all about ancient Mesopotamia." Jake's eyes flickered with interest, but then clouded with shadows. He ran a hand through his hair, the lines on his forehead deepening. "That's cool, Amy, but we don't have the money for things like that. You know, Mom's working 2 jobs just to pay the bills." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the reality that trapped them. Despite Jake's downcast tone, Amy's mind raced with possibilities. She saw children laughing, adults sharing stories, and something incredible happening right in her small town. It ignited a yearning inside her, a fire that she couldn't ignore. But as she met Jake's weary gaze, she sensed the tension between them. Childhood laughter had become a rare sound, overshadowed by the need for survival and the days that followed. The excitement for the exhibit was marred by constant reminders of their struggles. Their small house felt tighter, as Amy and Jake's dreams collided with the harsh realities of life. There was a town hall meeting buzzing with urgency, neighbors exchanging ideas amid worry-laden faces. They discussed the local economy, the growing despair. Amy's heart pounded, desperate for one moment of connection amidst the towering worries. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Just when it seemed like sharing her thoughts at the meeting could be her chance, a misunderstanding left her reeling. Her voice threatened to disappear into the clamor of doubt swirling around her like a storm. But Amy was stubborn. She turned to her friends, rallying together, determined not to let their voices go unheard. Every setback revealed a hidden talent among her neighbors, a forgotten artist, a storyteller, an old veteran who once inspired Jake. Life pulsed in their town, laced with memories of triumph, and Amy was ready to embrace it all. As the exhibit's opening night drew closer, hope surged within her like molten lava begging to explode into the sky. But just as things seemed to settle, a sudden twist threatened to pull the rug out from underneath her dreams. Heart racing, Amy faced a choice that would shape not only her future but her relationship with Jake. In a moment, she grappled with the harrowing question: what does it truly mean to pursue a dream when the world feels heavy with doubt? Could unity prevail against the ocean of challenges before them? The stage was set for a powerful awakening that could either bind them together or drive them apart. Amy stared at the flyer, the vibrant colors now feeling more like chains than confetti. The excitement that had once sparkled in her chest dimmed, replaced by the weight of Jake's reality. She could almost hear the hum of the town hall meeting still buzzing in her head. It felt as if their worries were creeping closer, tightening around them like a noose. "I just wanted you to dream with me, Jake," she said softly, the words barely escaping her lips. The fight in her heart wavered as she struggled to hold on to hope while staring into the eyes of her brother, whose expression seemed carved from stone. But memories of laughter echoed in her mind. She recalled the days spent in the backyard, crafting worlds of make-believe and stories so grand they could outshine any real-life struggle. The image of the exhibit now sparked a flicker of that same imagination, a light that had dimmed but never extinguished. "What if we could create that here?" she whispered, her voice rising with newfound resolve. Jake sighed, his brow furrowed. It's just an exhibit, Amy. It won't change anything for us. The edges of his tone were sharp, but deep down, she sensed a thin thread of longing for something more. If only the two of them could navigate the storm together, instead of dwelling in their separate ships. Determined, Amy gathered her friends that weekend, their faces glowing with enthusiasm as she spread out the plans for the exhibit. Each child's eyes widened as if they had been presented with treasures unloaded from a chest. They brainstormed activities, ideas flying like confetti in the wind. Each child contributed something personal: handmade invitations for neighbors, a backdrop of ziggurats painted on cardboard, even the notion of reenacting ancient marketplace scenes as they laughed together. Amy felt a spark of purpose igniting in her heart again. But lurking in the background was the uneasiness hanging over her like clouds before a storm. What would Jake think of her plan? Would he feel left out? As the grand reveal loomed closer, she knew she needed to bridge that gap. Amy, this is amazing, Claire, her best friend, exclaimed, beaming at the vision. We can totally pull this off. Hours passed, and as they prepared, Amy felt an unsettling fear creeping in the fear of failure. What if the exhibit flopped? What if her effort only brought more disappointment to her family? Those thoughts battled fiercely in her mind, until she found herself alone in the kitchen one evening, the flickering lights overhead amplifying her anxiety. With trembling hands, she picked up her phone to text Jake. Can we talk? It was a simple message, but she knew the weight it carried. Would he understand her vision? Would he see beyond the struggles and grasp what she wanted to create? The minutes passed like hours. Just as she began to lose hope, her phone chimed. It was Jake. Yeah, what's up? Taking a deep breath, she typed back. Can you come to the exhibit meeting tomorrow? I want to show you something. The next day, Amy stood in front of her friends as Jake entered the dim room. Their eyes met, and she fought to read his expression. He seemed tired, but there was a flicker of curiosity. The air felt dense with unspoken words, and the moment stretched on. Hey, everyone, Amy said, her voice unwavering but her heart racing. I know life is tough right now, but I believe we can turn hope into something beautiful. I want to show you how we can bring ancient Mesopotamia to life in our town. The room filled with energy as she detailed their ideas, and she caught Jake's gaze shifting from uncertainty to intrigue. The hesitation in his face melted just slightly. By the time she finished, she held her breath, waiting for his response. Okay, Jake said eventually, maybe this could work. We'll need to hustle, though. Hope surged inside her once again, stronger this time. Together? She asked softly. Together, Jake affirmed, a small smile creeping onto his lips. Just like that, a crack appeared in the heavy shadows of doubt that had loomed over them. As each friend chimed in with new ideas, it was clear the vision of the exhibit was growing roots beyond her expectations. But, in the depths of the back of her mind, doubts still gnawed at her. Was pursuing this dream the right decision? What challenges awaited them? With Jake on board, could they really pull off something meaningful against a world that seemed intent on holding them back? The excitement was palpable as the meeting wrapped up, but Amy couldn't shake the feeling that they were just starting to climb a mountain, one that promised both peril and potential ahead. The future felt uncertain, but they were finally charting a course together. Tonight, they would rise to the challenge. And as she looked out at her friends, she grinned, ready for whatever lay ahead. But as twilight fell, a shattering noise erupted from outside, making her heart skip a beat. Something in the darkness felt amiss, and the unease coiled tighter in her stomach. What was waiting for them in the night? Amy's heart raced as she instinctively turned towards the sound. The sharp crack echoed through the backyard, and her friends fell silent, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear. A chill crawled up her spine. The world they had begun to envision felt suddenly fragile against the weight of the unknown outside. Did you guys hear that? Claire whispered, her eyes wide. Jake's expression hardened, the protective instinct shooting through him like a current. Stay inside, he ordered, stepping toward the door. But Amy was already moving. She needed to know what was happening. Curiosity and panic swirled in her chest. I'm going with you, she said, not waiting for him to argue. If this was a threat, she wouldn't let her brother face it alone. Jake hesitated, his eyes tracking hers, gauging her determination. Okay, just be careful. Together, they crept to the front porch, the dim light spilling out onto the driveway. The street loomed dark, shadows dancing under the street lamps, and the night felt heavy with anticipation. Maybe it was just a branch or something, Amy suggested, trying to convince herself. Right? But Jake shook his head, peering into the darkness. No way. That noise was too loud. Suddenly, a figure moved just beyond the edge of the light. Amy's breath hitched. Who's there? She called out, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. The figure paused, a moment of stillness before stepping into the light. It was a man disheveled, fear plastered on his face. He wore a tattered coat, and his hands trembled in front of him. Help please, he croaked, the rawness of his voice slicing through the tension. Jake stiffened beside her, and Amy's heart twisted at the desperation emanating from this stranger. What happened? She asked softly, taking a cautious step forward. They didn't mean to hurt me, he stammered, looking from Jake to Amy, panic flickering in his eyes. But I saw some guys digging near the old school. They were up to something illegal. I tried to leave, but they caught me. Amy's mind raced. Were they dealing drugs, vandalizing property? The world she had been so excited to shape felt suddenly eclipsed by this chilling reality. Did they see you? They know I'm around, he continued, glancing back down the dark street as if the danger lurked just beyond their view. I escaped, but they might come after me. I need a place to hide, just for a bit before she could think. Amy glanced at Jake, who wore an expression of unease. Helping wasn't just about the exhibit now. Could they risk bringing this unknown threat into their home? Okay, Amy said, her heart pounding. You can stay with us, just until we figure this out. As the man stepped closer, Jake grabbed her arm, concern etched into his features. Are you sure about this, Amy? Maybe he really is in trouble, she replied, feeling every pulse of her own heart for the latent warmth of compassion. What if we don't help, and something happens to him? Jake's sigh was heavy, yet he nodded slowly. Fine, but we have to be careful. As they brought the stranger inside, Amy sensed the fragile line they were walking. The exhibit had been meant to bring joy and creativity, an oasis from their struggles. Now their venture for light felt overshadowed by shadows flickering dangerously close to home. Later that night, as they huddled together in the living room, the man sharing his story while Jake sat protectively near Amy, the air was thick with the weight of uncertainty. Amy caught herself glancing at Jake, wanting to gauge his feelings on this unexpected turn of events. But his gaze remained distant, locked on the window, shadows stealing over his face. It was the first time they were grappling not just with neighborhood troubles, but personal safety in their very own space. What lies beyond this moment? Amy thought, the question roaming the fringes of her mind. As sleep finally overwhelmed the day's tension, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were only at the beginning of a bigger storm. And with every tick of the clock that night, the hollow sound echoed louder. What awaited them in the dark? And could their dreams survive against the realities that were now closing in? The next morning, Amy woke to the soft rustle of the curtains dancing in the early sunlight. The previous night's events felt like a heavy blanket, still draped over her mind. She stretched out, trying to shake the sense of dread, but it clung to her like the early morning fog. Jake was already up, pacing the small kitchen. His brows were furrowed, a tightly wound cord of tension evident in his posture. At the table, the stranger sat, head bent over a cup of steaming coffee, his hands trembling slightly as he lifted the cup to his lips. Morning, Amy said, attempting to inject some cheer into the heavy air. She felt the weight of their uninvited guest looming large. Morning, Jake replied, shaking his head as if he could physically dispel his worries. We need to talk about what happens next. The man glanced up, his eyes filled with an unspeakable gratitude that mixed uneasily with fear. I'm grateful for what you're doing, he said. But if those guys come looking for me, it could put you in danger. Amy felt her heart race. The thought of putting her family at risk gnawed at her. What exactly were they doing? She pressed. What do we need to know? Drugs. They've been digging for something buried in that old-school lot of stash, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I think it might be bigger than anyone realizes. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The room fell quiet, the weight of his words hanging like a thick cloud. Jake leaned against the counter, crossing his arms defensively. Maybe we should call the police, he suggested, glancing at Amy. They need to know about this. No, the man said, suddenly panicked. If I go to the police, they'll find out. I'll be dead before the sun sets. They're everywhere. What are you saying? Amy frowned, irritation mixing with pity. She wanted to help, but where was the line between kindness and foolishness? What else can we do then? Jake asked, his voice rising. We can't just sit here and wait for something bad to happen. The tension crackled in the air like static electricity. Amy felt torn. They had taken a risk already by offering shelter. If they turned him away, would that haunt her? But opening their doors wider could mean inviting the very danger they feared. Maybe we could help him find a way to get back to safety? Amy suggested hesitantly. There must be a way without involving the police. Is that really worth our lives? Jake shot back, frustration swirling in his voice. The stranger stared at them, his eyes wide, but he didn't seem to intervene. Instead, his gaze drifted to the window, the fear and uncertainty mixing in his expression. They stood on the edge of a cliff, each step uncertain. Amy swallowed hard, trying to push her own fears aside. We can't just abandon him. Maybe he knows something about the guys, he saw something we could use to protect ourselves. Jake's mouth tightened, but he shifted, considering her words. All right, but we have to be smart about this. He looked at the stranger. What do you suggest we do? The man's eyes brightened just slightly. We need to find out what they're searching for, and if possible, take it before they can use it against anyone else. Amy felt a surge of adrenaline. What he suggested could be dangerous, but hope flickered in the depths of her disbelief. They could be doing something proactive instead of sitting idle. Okay, she said, determination flooding her voice. Let us figure out a plan. Together. The very thought sent chills of excitement through her, but the weight of their reality still pressed heavily on her shoulders. As they huddled to sketch out the next steps, Amy felt the landscape of her future shifting profoundly. Outside, the sun brightened, illuminating a new day filled with possibility but also uncertainty. As they laid out their plans, a creeping worry brewed within her. Would the act of stepping into the unknown lead them to safety or deeper into trouble? With each decision they made, she sensed the fabric of their lives changing irrevocably. Secrets would be unearthed, and with them, perhaps, the strength to fight for their dreams. But at what cost? What had once felt like a vibrant adventure now seethed with risk and fear. Amy couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were only just beginning to unravel a much larger threat. How deep did the shadows stretch in her quiet town? The morning sun bathed the kitchen in a warm glow, but the heat did little to ease the tension. Jake flipped through a notepad, jotting down ideas while the stranger sipped his coffee, nervously tapping his foot against the floor. Amy felt a newfound sense of urgency. They were diving into something dangerous, and it was time to face the unknown. All right, Amy began, wrapping her arms around herself as if to shield against the chill of fear. What do you need from us to figure out what they're after? The stranger looked up, his eyes sharp but clouded with confusion. You don't understand what you're getting into. They won't stop until they find what they're looking for. Jake set his pen down, frustration etched on his face. We get that, but we've already been involved, right? We might as well see this through. What's your name? Amy asked softly, trying to draw him out of his shell. Ethan. His voice trembled, but there was a spark of defiance too. If we're going to do this, we need to move fast. They'll come looking, and I've noticed their pattern. What pattern? Jake asked, leaning forward, clearly trying to keep focused. Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself. They come around this neighborhood every evening, scoping things out. We need to watch them, learn what they're doing. Then we can make our move. Panic fluttered in Amy's chest. And how do we do that? Just stand around and wait? No, Ethan replied, his eyes piercing. We'll want to drive out to the school lot. It's less likely they'll notice us if we're in the car, masking our curiosity. Jake nodded, glancing toward the window. The street outside seemed so peaceful, unbothered by the danger lurking nearby. All right, let us do it then. Wait, Amy interjected. What if they catch us? What if she stopped short, feeling the gravity of her thoughts? When she realized she had to trust her instincts, even if they were screaming in panic. Sometimes doing the right thing was terrifying. Ethan, please, she added, her voice low and steady. Tell us everything we need to know to stay safe out there. Ethan almost smiled, a half-hearted effort. Stay aware. Keep your eyes on the lot, but act natural. They're good at spotting fear. If you feel something off, we should leave immediately. No hesitations. The plan was hastily pieced together, like a jigsaw puzzle that needed only a few more moves to complete. They would drive over at dusk, pretending to be just another group of kids hanging out. The thrill and fear mixed in Amy's stomach like a lively dance. Did they really know what they were in for? As the afternoon stretched on, they prepared for their mission. Jake gathered supplies while Amy's mind raced through the details. She couldn't shake the worry that this could all end badly. What if they were caught? Would she be able to live with herself if something happened to Ethan or Jake? Just before they were set to leave, there was a sudden knock on the door. Time froze. Every instinct sharpened. Who is it? Jake whispered, his voice tense. I don't know, she breathed, glancing at Ethan, who was looking increasingly frightened. Don't let them see you, he urged. Amy's heart thrummed loudly as she imagined the worst. Who could be standing there? The thought of those dangerous men made her stomach flip. Do you think it's them? She whispered, barely able to speak. I hope not, Jake murmured. But we should check. As Jake crept toward the door, time felt suspended. The knock came again, insistent and heavy. Wait, Amy hissed. We can't. The unseen visitor outside knocked again, this time harder. Jake, she started, but uncertainty choked her voice. He turned the handle slowly, cautiously. Little did they know, this moment would change everything. As the door swung wide open, the air shimmered with tension. The weight of unseen choices cloaked them all. What awaited them on the other side? Jake opened the door slowly, his heart pounding wildly in his chest. Amy held her breath, the tense silence thick in the air. The door creaked as it swung wide, revealing a woman standing there, her eyes wide with urgency. Is this the Garza residence? She asked breathlessly, her voice trembling slightly. Yeah, Jake replied hesitantly, glancing at Amy and then back at the unknown visitor. I am so sorry to barge in like this. The woman's cheeks were flushed. A sheen of sweat glistened on her brow. I need your help. There's a man he's been watching your house. I heard a rumor that he's connected to some bad people. A chill ran down Amy's spine. What do you mean watching our house? He's lurking around. I saw him yesterday evening and he seemed too interested in you, the woman explained, her hand trembling as she pointed behind her. I don't know what they want, but you need to be careful. You're in danger. Why were you watching our house? Jake asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. The woman held up her hands in defense. My brother went missing last month, and I've been looking into it. I connected his disappearance to this man. I thought I could warn you before it got worse. Ethan, Amy called softly, catching the stranger's attention. His face reflected shared dread. They knew they were already in deep, but this revelation only intensified their fear. Do you know what this man looks like? Ethan's voice was low, his eyes darting as if the man might appear at any moment. Tall, scruffy beard, always wears a dark jacket. I swear, if he's here, you're in real trouble, she said, glancing back down the street as if expecting the figure to emerge. You're not safe here. What do you suggest we do? Amy's voice edged on panic, her mind racing with images of shadows lurking in every corner. Get out. Now. The woman's tone was sharp, filling the space with urgency. Go to my place. It's just a few blocks away. You can hide there until I can help you figure out how to deal with this." Jake and Amy exchanged a look, their fate swirling before them. "I don't think we can just leave," Jake started. But Ethan cut him off. "If we stay, we risk everything." "We may not have a choice," he insisted. The woman nodded emphatically. With her heart racing, Amy took a step towards the woman. "Will you stay with us? Until we know it's safe?" "I can't. If they see me helping you," she hesitated. Fear etched on her face. "Trust me. I'll come back as soon as I can. You just need to go." Fingers trembling, Amy reached for her phone, but then hesitated. What if they were tracked? "Okay, we'll go," she burst out, almost pleading. "But you have to promise to hurry back. We don't want to get caught." The woman nodded, her eyes steadying. "You can do this. I believe in you all." As the three of them bolted out the back door, Amy felt trapped between fear and resolve. Each step was heavy with the weight of the unknown. They hurried down the alley, hushed and cautious, the thrill of danger quickening their pace. Minutes later, they skidded into the alley behind the school lot. The fading sunlight cast long shadows, and just as they breathed a sigh of relief, the unmistakable crunch of gravel echoed behind them. "Are they following us?" Jake whispered, his face pale with anxiety. Ethan nodded, and the resolve in his eyes hardened. "We need to keep moving. We can't slow down now." Suddenly, Amy spotted a figure flitting into the shadows ahead. The familiar shape made her heart drop. "Wait, is that him?" As panic bubbled in her chest, they exchanged terrified glances. Did they have the courage to confront whatever was coming their way? The silence thickened once more, pregnant with tension. What awaited them in this perilous new chapter of their lives? Amy's breath caught in her throat as the figure stepped into the glow of the street lamp. Her grip tightened on Jake's hand, fear pulsing through her veins like ice. Ethan instinctively moved closer to her side, protective and alert. I can't tell if that's him," Jake murmured, his eyes flicking nervously between the shadows and the two wide-eyed companions beside him. The looming figure seemed to pulse with menace, shifting just out of full view. "Let's keep moving," Ethan urged, voice steady but filled with an urgency that made it clear there was no choice left. They turned to sprint down the narrow alley, each footfall echoing against the brick walls. Jake led the way, his heart racing a wild tempo. Amy followed close behind, each flicker of movement in the darkness stirring her anxiety. She could feel the shadows reaching out, almost tangibly, as if eager to swallow them whole. "Where are we going?" Amy asked breathlessly, her mind racing a mile a minute as they rounded a corner. "Near the park," Ethan said, glancing over his shoulder as they dashed forward. "It has more openings. We can blend in with the crowd if we need to." Fighting against the mounting dread, Amy focused on the gray stones beneath her feet. She couldn't allow herself to think of what could happen if they were caught. The woman had warned them, but somewhere inside her mind, doubt began to mix with panic. "Do you think she's going to come back?" Amy felt her voice tremble, a mix of desperation and anxiety. Ethan's eyes softened momentarily. "I want to believe she will. If she really is on our side, then she'll find a way back." And yet, Amy couldn't shake the feeling that they were all tangled in a web of danger. Her thoughts darted to the woman's brother, the one who had gone missing. What if the same fate awaited them? Just then, the screech of tires echoed from behind. Instinctively, they ducked into a doorframe. A car sped past, its headlights slicing through the night, chasing shadows away. Amy held her breath, praying they wouldn't be discovered. As the noise faded, Ethan peeked around the edge of the wall. "I think we're clear for now. Let us keep moving," Jake urged, and they stepped back into the street. They walked briskly toward the park, the chilling evening air snapping at their faces as snippets of conversations floated around them, laughter and chatter, oblivious to their fear. But just as relief washed over them, a loud shout pierced through the crowd. "Hey, you three! Stop!" Time froze. Amy's heart dropped into her stomach as she turned, catching sight of the dark figure from before, now slightly closer. The man with the scruffy beard was pushing his way through the throng of people, eyes locked on them. Run! Jake shouted, and without thinking, they broke into a sprint. Amy felt the adrenaline surge within her, propelling them forward as they zigzagged through the panicking crowd. Fear gripped her, but a glimmer of determination surfaced. They couldn't let the man catch them. With every stride, her resolve strengthened. There was more at stake than just their safety now. They needed to uncover the truth not only about the man watching them but also about what was hidden in the darkness of their lives. But as they veered closer to the trees lining the park, she could feel the chilling realization settling in. What if there was more to this than they could handle? And just when they thought they were gaining distance, the man slipped deeper into the darkness, blending into the night, waiting for the right moment to strike. Where do we go now? Amy's voice trembled, but she knew they were at a crossroads. They had to gather their strength and confront whatever lay ahead. Fear intertwined with a flicker of hope in her heart. What if they could turn this chase around? But would they have the courage to face the truth? As they stumbled toward the edge of the park, the weight of uncertainty loomed heavy. The stakes were rising, and the answers they sought felt just out of reach. The woods beyond the park beckoned, hiding secrets of their own. Would they uncover the truth there, or would the shadows deepen further still? Breathless, they crashed through the entrance of the park, the trees looming like silent sentinels overhead. In the flickering lamplight, shadows twisted and turned, playing tricks on Amy's already frazzled mind. The world felt distant, muffled, and all she could hear was the pounding of her heart and the rush of air pushing past her lips. Over here, Jake pointed toward a dense cluster of hedges. They dove in, the leaves scratching at their arms, but they didn't care. Huddled together, they caught their breath, feeling the rush of adrenaline slowly ebb. Did he see us? Ethan whispered, his tone barely breaking the silence of the night. He was staring into the dark, eyes scanning every rustle, every push of leaf. I don't know, Amy panted, shaking off the urgency still gripping her. She felt raw and exposed, like an animal cornered by a predator. Maybe we should just keep moving. We can't stay hidden forever. Jake shook his head, glancing between the two of them. We need a plan. The longer we stay here, the more risk we take. Amy nodded, pushing back a curl of hair that had fallen into her eyes. But how? That guy. He knew who we were. We can't underestimate him. Before Jake could speak, a rustling noise echoed from the edge of the thicket. All three turned, frozen, breath held tight in their chests. Her heart raced again, the fear returning like an unwelcome guest. Just an animal? Ethan murmured, though the tremor in his voice suggested otherwise. But Amy squinted into the darkness, straining to see. Was there a figure lurking just beyond the reach of the lamplight? She couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. A moment dragged by, thick with tension, before Jake decided action was better than inaction. Let us get more distance between us and the entrance. If he's searching for us, he began. But they all knew what he didn't say. If he found them, it'd be too late. Quietly, they slipped out of the hedges and tried to remain as inconspicuous as possible. Each rustle of a leaf sent shivers up Amy's spine. They crept along a winding path, the weight of darkness falling heavily upon them. Unexpectedly, Ethan stopped, his face stricken with fear. What if we split up? He suggested. Could throw him off the trail. Absolutely not, Amy exclaimed, her voice rising in panic. That is the worst idea ever. We stick together. Jake nodded firmly. We'll feel stronger together. We can't risk losing anyone. No one gets left behind. They picked up their pace, sprinting toward the far end of the park where the treeline grew denser. The lights from the street faded behind them, but Amy felt a flicker of hope. Somewhere within the depths of those trees, they might find a refuge. But just as they burst through the branches, brick walls came into view. They were back in the city, a maze of buildings emerging from the shadows. The sight created a mixture of relief and dread. The urban landscape was familiar but dangerous. Look, Jake pointed toward a coffee shop, the last flicker of warmth in the night. The windows glowed like beacons, its signs slightly flickering. We can hide inside, talk it through, plan our next move. It's not much, but his words hung heavy in the atmosphere, a lifeline offered in the sea of chaos surrounding them. But what if he finds us there? Amy whispered, doubt creeping into her voice. Ethan took her hand, squeezing it gently. We can't live in fear. We need to face this. With determination surfacing in her chest, Amy took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, let us do this. As they sprinted toward the shop, her heart pounded not just with fear but a rush of resolve. This was their chance. But just as they reached for the door, it swung open, and their eyes met the man with the scruffy beard stepping inside, a smirk curling his lips. Thought you could escape that easily? He taunted, his voice low and foreboding. In that instant, Amy felt all their courage waver. Would they finally uncover the truth they had long feared? Or had they unwittingly walked into a trap? The moment of truth loomed closer, the dark shadows of their past poised to collide with their uncertain future. Would they find the answers they desperately sought or face the darkness that threatened to consume them? The door swung open with a creak, and time seemed to freeze. The man in the doorway blocked the light from the street, his shadow stretching ominously toward them. His grin was unnerving, a glint of something sharp hidden behind those dark eyes. Get inside, Jake urged, pushing Amy and Ethan ahead of him as they stumbled into the shop, the familiar aroma of coffee hitting them like an old friend. The bell above the door jingled, but the warmth of the cafe did little to ease the chill that settled in the pit of Amy's stomach. They moved hastily to a corner booth, huddling close like frightened birds. What do we do now? Ethan's voice shook, barely above a whisper. Just act normal, Jake said, but even he sounded uncertain. They exchanged anxious glances, their hearts still racing. The cafe was sparsely populated, the few patrons oblivious to the storm brewing just a few feet away. Amy noticed a couple sharing a laugh at the counter and a barista working quietly, but none of them seemed aware of the threat lurking just outside. What do you mean, normal? Amy shot back. He knows us. He knows what we did. Less talking, Jake hissed, turning his attention back to the door. The warmth that had initially comforted them now felt suffocating. Outside, the man had lingered, his smirk fading as he surveyed the cafe from the sidewalk. Nervously, Amy leaned closer to the window, the glow of the shop reflecting off her worried face. Maybe he'll just leave, Ethan suggested, though the hope in his voice was tenuous at best. But the man didn't move. He stood there, like a dark cloud, waiting. If we're gonna make a plan, Amy said, her voice trembling but firm, we need to know what he wants. What does he want from us? Maybe it's about the files, Jake speculated, his brow furrowed. What we uncovered in the archives. That's just it, Jake, Amy said, frustration edging her tone. Would he risk all that trouble for just the files? It has to be something more. Then we have to find out, Ethan said, determination breaking through the fear. We can't hide for long. We need to go back there. No, Amy interjected, shaking her head vehemently. That's what he wants. To drive us back to him. We have to outsmart him. Then let us distract him. Jake's voice was gaining strength. We can split up here. One of us makes a scene while the others slip out the back. Amy stared at him, her heart racing again. Are you serious? Split up? After everything? Listen, it's our best shot. He's focused on finding us. We can use that to our advantage, Jake argued, desperation creeping into his pitch. I don't want to lose anyone, Ethan said, his tone earnest. In that moment, every unspoken feeling flooded Amy's mind. Fear of losing her friends and that nagging doubt that wove itself tightly around her heart. What if she began, the idea forming in her head, what if we don't split up? What if we draw him out together? Make him think he's cornering us? We can use the cafe to our advantage too. Like what? Pretend to run? Just run headfirst into his trap? Jake replied, but Amy could see the flicker of understanding in his eyes. Yes, we can find an exit he won't expect. We have to believe he's underestimating us. The air seemed to hum with their resolve. They could either give in to fear or rise against it. As they shared a silent nod of agreement, the cafe door creaked open again, and the man stepped in, his smile now chillingly eager. The suspense coiled tightly as he scanned the room, his gaze locking onto their booth. Amy's heart pounded in her chest like thunder. This was the moment. Would they summon the courage to face him together? Or would the shadows of their past consume them once and for all? The fate of their future hung in the balance, and the only thing they could do was hope that their resolve was enough to turn the tide. The man's eyes glinted with menace as he approached, the anticipation crackling in the air like static electricity. Behind him, the door swung shut with a jarring thud, sealing off their escape. "Thought you could hide in plain sight, huh?" He sneered, smirking as he pushed his hands deep into his jacket pockets. Amy's heart raced as she leaned closer to Jake and Ethan, the adrenaline pumping through her veins more fiercely than before. Now, let us not make a scene," Ethan said, his voice steady but low enough to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. "What do you want?" The man chuckled, a low, dark sound that churned Amy's stomach. "Isn't it obvious? You're the ones who dug too deep. You should be left well enough alone." He took a step closer, and although fear surged inside her, Amy felt a flicker of defiance stirring as she met his gaze. "We didn't do anything illegal," Jake asserted, his voice firm despite the quivering tension in the air. "We found something that shouldn't be hidden. You're scared the truth will come out." "Cute," the man said, cocking an eyebrow, "but it can't come out if you don't live to tell it." The barista behind the counter was oblivious, humming to herself as she worked, and Amy took note of the positioning of the door. An opportunity flickered in her mind like a faint glimmer of hope. Jake leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "We need to move, Amy. We can't let him corner us here." "Just a second," Amy whispered back, her eyes fixed on the man, her heart pounding louder than the cafe's chatter. "Why don't you come join me for a little chat outside?" "Huh?" he suggested, his tone dripping with sickly sweet malice. "No," she said suddenly, her voice more confident than she felt. "What is stopping us from dragging you back into our world right here, in this cafe with all these witnesses?" The man took a step back, surprise flashing across his face. It was subtle enough that only they noticed, but Amy's heart soared at the brief recognition of vulnerability. Maybe they had a shot if they kept him off balance. "Witnesses?" He pointed to the sparse crowd. "People who can be easily ignored or intimidated. You're out of your depth here, girl. But you're not the one who's talking about hiding, are you? You already did that. You live in the shadows," Amy pressed, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "And you're scared." The man's expression hardened, anger flooding through him. "Careful, kid." Before he could finish, Jake shot to his feet. "We don't have to listen to you." He reached across the table, knocking over a chair in the process. The sound echoed through the cafe, silencing conversations. All eyes turned to them. "Run!" Amy yelled, grabbing Ethan's arm and pulling him toward the back entrance she had noticed. They bolted, adrenaline fueling their every step. The man lost his composure, frantically shouting after them. But they slipped through the cafe's back door, and into the cool night, a rush of fresh air, hitting them like a wave after being underwater too long. As they sprinted into the dark alley behind the cafe, the chaos behind them blurred. Their hearts pumped, and hope surged within them, a collective feeling that echoed louder than fear. "Where to now?" Ethan gasped, panting as they halted for a moment, leaning against the cold brick wall. "What if he follows?" "Let him," Jake replied, determination chiseled into his features. "We know the place better than he does. We can use that." A plan began to form in Amy's mind, a sanctuary ahead. "Let us get to the school. If those men are digging for something, we'll see what it is for ourselves." "Are you sure about that?" Jake's eyes narrowed as he considered the dangers they were myopically diving into. "This can't be the end," Amy said resolutely. "We've come too far. We need to reclaim our lives and get to the bottom of this." They moved swiftly, flitting from shadow to shadow until they reached the abandoned school. The air was thick with tension, but there was power in their unity. They climbed through a broken window, their hearts racing, the thrill of determination hanging heavily in the air. Inside, the large hall felt like a cavern of echoes and memories, stale air heavy with dust and possibilities. What now? Ethan asked, looking around nervously. We find out what they're after, Amy declared, her voice echoing in the silence. Then we take action. As they navigated through the tangled remnants of the school, whispers of stories buried in the debris fluttered around them. They could do this, find resilience within hardship, and stand unyielding. Together, they confronted the fear that had haunted them and emerged ready to fight as a team, bound by shared experiences and a steadfast refusal to back down. The future may have loomed blurred and uncertain, but in that moment, shadows no longer intimidated them. They were ready to face whatever the night held, united by a fire of hope that flickered bright against the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, they were about to uncover a truth that could change not just their lives, but the very fabric of their town forever, something worth fighting for. Something that drew a line between fear and a new beginning. As they ventured deeper into the darkness, a sense of unyielding determination coursed through them like electricity. They would reclaim their narrative, and the shadows had no power over them now. This was their moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.